So, yeah, evolution is exciting. Evolution can have a lot of fireworks. Yesterday, I did step up to another level of evolution, and yeah, it probably wasn't super pretty. I was yelling, yes. Um, yeah, some of you won't be able to handle the protocol or me, especially if you're new, I kind of give you leeway, but not a lot. Some of you are very, very new, and so I kind of give you some stuff, leeway. Some of you have been on my Facebook forever, so you trigger the evolution in me. And when that happens, it means that I have to really make a point. And when I make a point, it may seem like I'm trying to sacrifice this person when you think about it, right? Because yeah, yesterday Shannon Ray did defriend me. And I kind of knew, I risked my friendship with her on Facebook. Not like we had a really close relationship. I knew there were things that we didn't totally agree on, but whatever. I mean, that happens. But yesterday, definitely, I took a major risk. And yeah, I mean, when you take risks so you can get the point across, not only her, but everyone else that just seems to be, their head in the clouds, you just have to do it because you know what? Ultimately, when I said in my Facebook group, okay, the Jelly Juice LLC, ignore the delivery, look at the information. If when I get annoyed when someone doesn't read all my information or get my book, or if they did get my book, they didn't read about the things that I talk about as far as antibodies. When I say really no questions, just drink the juice, report on your healing process to give other people kind of insight on what they could be expecting maybe, or just showing people that it's not a big deal the juice is, but it is and it isn't. That's all I ask. So if I really need to get a point across because some of you have some questions that you're afraid to ask me because you think I'm going to blow up on you, hey, fine. Okay, I will answer the question, but the delivery is not going to be, it's going to be unorthodox. Okay, so, and then in a lot of ways, it's like a clearing for me when I just yell. I know I yell. And that's kind of how, my mom got through to me on certain things to where I really remembered certain things. And it's not really a great way to get a point across, but it's effective. And I guess my mother would call it pragmatism. Whatever works, right? And it's like, oh my God, whatever works. That really has no boundaries. Um, but here we're doing everything over Facebook. We're doing everything over Facebook Live. We're doing everything online. It's not like I have her right next to me in a desk where I'm instructing with a chalkboard. No, this is some stuff that I'm really wanting you guys to be self-sufficient in. I try to have I try to uphold some responsibility in getting my information across, and I think I did a pretty good job. So if you don't get my information or don't understand it because you haven't done your own research on even some of the stuff, then yeah, I'm going to be like, okay, dude, here we go. Well, if you want me to explain this in the same thing in a different way or whatever, I'm going to do it in the most unorthodox manner that's going to piss you off, and then you'll never forget it. Okay, and that's like, and so yeah, so yes, so she defriended me yesterday. So, okay, and that's fine, or actually blocked me. But it is what it is. Not everyone's cut out for the evolution because evolution can be very full of fireworks. It can be very, very aggressive. And it could also be very, very calm too when you finally reach the other side. Not because you're dead, because you finally regenerated. Okay? So anyways, so the whole thing about RFK and Ron Paul and your immune system. So the thing with your immune system is the fact that they aren't focusing on both sides of it. Okay, your immune system is black and white. It's either going to support you and keep you alive, or it will kill you. Okay, and so you now have to understand that it's all about balance. It's about triggering the right components in your immune system to keep you alive indefinitely. And so what's going on is right now is you're being sold on triggering the antibiotic side of your immune system. Okay, so the two sides of your immune system is the antibiotic, probiotic side. What's the probiotic? Well, it's the prostaglandin hormones. Prostaglandin hormones aid in the healing process. They are a specific hormone that originates in the prostate gland in a male, and then that is obviously taken on by both the male and female as part of your immune system, the healing part of your body. And it resides in the fatty acids, okay? Which means that if you have very little fat on your body, you're going to have a very hard time healing when you get injured or when you start contracting cancer disease and chronic illness. So those that are targeting their body fat to be like, 2%, 10%, 20%, you're actually causing your body to break down faster because you don't have those healing hormones at your disposal. Okay, and so also too, the prescription drugs, the painkillers, the anti-inflammatories, all of the antibiotics, all of the different detoxes actually suppress your prostaglandins. They suppress and they anesthetize your life force. So it deadens you. And so, and that's really called immunity. So it triggered me to really look at the black and white part of your immune system to make it so easy for all of you. Is when what triggered me to think about that was when I was looking at Raw Food Wild Riot, and their stuff comes to my newsfeed occasionally. And somebody says, oh yeah, it's all about building a strong immunity with all of these raw fruits and vegetables and this and that. And I'm like, you know what a strong immunity is? A strong immunity is where you have so many antibodies swimming around your body that it actually suppresses your evolution. So it's not optimal to be targeting and going after a strong immunity, okay? Because that means that there's a strong death process in your body. A weak immunity means that, yeah, you're living, you're not necessarily trying to evolve because you don't have anything aggressive in your environment trying to attack you and make you adapt yet again to a new environment. So when someone has a weak immunity, they have a strong body. Now you can have a strong immune system, which means that you have a good balance of prostaglandins doing what it needs to do. And then what are the antibodies for? Well, when you get exposed to a new virus, you get exposed to new things in the environment, your body has to upgrade. Well, sometimes the cells, not all the cells, adapt. And so the body then gets rid of the cells that, honestly, the cells wash themselves away. Because like when you take a shower and you scrape off like your skin, those are skin cells. Well, your body does the same thing. It goes through a cleansing overnight. It does its upgrades, it does all of its recalibrations, and sometimes there's jetsam and flotsam in your body that needs to be released, and that's in your poop. Okay? So your poop isn't always just the food that you ate before. It's then parts of your microbiome that the body doesn't need, that it's used up, it doesn't need, and it needs to be released. And that's in your pee. And in your pee could be like proteins. It could also be different acids. And then the solid waste could be whatever foods you've been eating or anything else that may have ended up in your system that needed to be part of your solid waste. Okay, so you have many ways to release the excess skin cells, excess cells in your body that the body doesn't need. And that was triggered because antibodies, which is basically like your environment, come in and then they do what they need to do. I mean, the viruses, okay, viruses are this dark energy, dark matter, not dark energy, but dark matter like junk DNA that is going in and sending messages to everything in your body, and then your body then goes and upgrades. And sometimes there are certain cells that excess cells or excess stuff that needs to be released, and that's what goes on. Okay, so antibodies are not like you're not supposed to induce them on a natural level, but you're not supposed to really notice them. Okay, they're there as a very quick recalibration and then released with your poop and your pee every morning. Okay, but here's the thing, the medical holistic system, they are all about strong immunity. That ought to tell you something, because what is immunity? When you are unaffected by your environment. And you should be affected by your environment, but not to where you're constantly evolving on a daily basis. I mean, really your environment needs to be like really homeostasis. But right now we have all of these microbes, these excess microbes with viral proteins that have been bioengineered, and they have been oh God, distributed by biotech, and then people are releasing them because the body is trying to recalibrate, and then other people are then taking them on. Now, here's the thing. If antibodies, okay, if antibodies are so poisonous and so bad to where you have to wear a mask, your kids are being taken away because you tested positive for COVID-19, and they have to isolate you and quarantine you and basically justify the Emergency Response Act. If antibodies are so horrible and so bad, why the hell are we injecting antibodies in our body? Whether they're monoclonal antibodies, synthetic antibodies, same thing, or other types of antibodies. Why are we injecting them for one? And then why are we taking them in prescription drugs? And then why are we inducing them with turmeric and honey and all the different detoxes and anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, antimicrobials, antifungals? Why are we talking about having a very strong immunity, which is very different than a strong immune system? And so then the HR 66 is all about um, perpetuating and sustaining that fallacy that 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 they say antibodies are so dangerous, which yes, it's an evolution, but yet you're injecting them and you're taking them in prescription drugs. And so this is HR 66 is, yeah, it's draconian, but it's also 666. It's also weaponizing yourself or weaponizing people's bodies against their population, like I said yesterday. And so, you really have to understand that antibodies are being weaponized against you. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter in what form. It doesn't matter in what way you induce them. It's the fact that they are using it as a way to say that they're healing you. And really, the prostaglandins is what not only RFK and Ron Paul need to talk about, but they have to understand that the whole medical holistic industry is all about antibodies. Okay? So Ron Paul and Rand Paul and RFK, they're it's like there has never really been any headway since the anti-vax movement has been put out there. Even though, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, people are they're raising awareness. Okay, but then when you're still promoting doctors, still promoting entering into the system of biotech, when you're getting tested, when you're voluntarily giving your DNA, you're justifying why vaccines need to exist because you're trying to say that, oh God, I might test positive for an antibody. And so when you test positive for all these antibodies, it means you're infectious, which, yeah, it does, but that's evolution and you need to release the excess. But then that would justify them to create these vaccines. And then they're saying, oh, well, you're speaking out both sides of your mouth. You say that you want to deal with your infection and all of your COVID-19 issues with all of your supplements and your holistic remedies, but yet you're not going to take something that's going to help you transition. See, I understand how to argue both sides because that's exactly what the allopathic industry has sold the pro-vaxxers. It's all about transitioning, which I guess in my book it says, yeah, some people get adverse reactions from vaccines because the antibodies have accumulated and the body isn't releasing the excess. And so if you get a smaller attenuated version of the virus, which has these monoclonal antibodies, it'll help you evolve slower. So those that are not doing the Jilly Juice, which is nobody in the anti-vax, pro-vax world, unless they understand Jilly in no way, right? And so if you have a slower evolution process, yeah, you might actually survive this aggressive environment. But the thing is that maybe that was true maybe 50 or 60 years ago. But now with this whole depopulation agenda, or 100 years ago, and this depopulation agenda, they're actually putting more aggressive antibodies in the vaccine. So your evolution process would be actually no different being exposed to a major aggressive virus with really no support to your system because nobody's doing Jilly Juice out there except for those that are doing Jilly Juice. So nobody in the anti-vax, pro-vax world that's never been exposed to jelly juice is doing jelly juice. So yeah, they're going to have to deal with having to upgrade and evolve to new environments over and over and over again. So, so here's the thing, okay? Why isn't RFK, JFK, or JFK, RFK Jr. and Ron Paul and Rand Paul talking about HR 666? Not just having a website where the Children's Defense Fund or something, or Children's Defense, whatever, where they talk about like, oh yeah, it's a draconian measure because it's all about surveillance and da da da, which is kind of the same thing in the conspiracy world, yes. But why don't you tell your people to stop complying with the system? Stop giving up your DNA. Stop going to your pediatricians, even if they're organic. Stop going to, but they're like, oh, but wait, hold on a second. The reason why we have these holistic and naturopathic doctors is because we have all these issues. And yet, when somebody who has a very weak body or a strong immunity, which means they're deadened and they get exposed to a new virus, then they are going to go through some kind of cancer, disease, and chronic illness, which means that it justifies then them getting a cleaner, safer vaccine. And so then really then RFK and Ron Paul and Rand Paul and all these people that are supporting these anti-vax bills are actually shooting themselves in the foot because they're not telling their people to stop complying. They're saying, oh yeah, go ahead, get tested, quarantine yourself. Well, maybe not, but they're not really focusing on the root cause, which is people submitting their DNA to biotech. If they were to tell everybody in their audience, do not give up your DNA for any COVID testing. Do not go see your doctors, because if you do, you're going to get more antibodies because that's what's in the drugs. And someone said, I know Jason Trevor said, oh, well, they don't know what you know. It doesn't matter. As soon as you trigger the insurance system, the medical system, it's going to justify everything that they're doing. Because remember, science wins, right? But science can be manipulated. Okay, just like them selling you antibodies as a way to manipulate you into thinking that it's healthy. And so, I don't know. It's such a clusterfuck in all of this, but you have to look at logic. You have to look at logic, okay? If antibodies are so dangerous to where you test positive for a coronavirus, why the hell would you inject antibodies in your body and take the different like hydroxychloroquines and everything that will induce antibodies? Because an antibody is an antibody is an antibody. It goes after your cells. Oh, but then they say, oh yeah, well, it's programmed to go after only the bad stuff. There's nothing bad in your body. There's nothing bad in your body. And so that's what the medical holistic industry has really snowed you guys into thinking that there's bad stuff in your body. There is nothing bad in your body. Your body needs everything that's in its body, but it needs balance. Okay? And killing anything in your body will cause more imbalances. And that's why people are aging. That's why they're degrading. That's why they are inducing cancer, disease, and chronic illness, because the body's trying to evolve. And so someone like RFK Jr. and Ron Paul and Rand Paul, who are aging and degrading, they're propping up biotech. They're justifying. But then everybody's like, but they don't know about indefinite life. Again, the root cause, as soon as you submit yourself in some way. I have people that are anti-vaxxers that are actually anti-vaxxers who will go to Stanford University and get different procedures done to them. Okay? Different procedures done to them and to their kids and still be anti-vax. Oh, but we want a safer vaccine, more testing, more, peer review stuff, more of this. That's the distraction that's out there. Can I actually say that Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Del Bigtree, all that are intentionally misinforming? I can't specifically say that, but they're part of the wing of the holistic industry. And they haven't really made any headway because guess what? Antibodies are still being, they're shedding. Even if you've got no vaccines, people would still be dying because they hold the antibodies in their body. Whenever you're aging, people who maybe they're not vaccinated at all whatsoever, let's just say that's a possibility, and they're aging and degrading, and they get exposed to their environment, whatever it is, they're going to release antibodies as the body tries to recalibrate. And guess what? Whoever is in their vicinity is going to get whatever antibodies, whatever evolution that's going to happen upon them. It's just a matter, it's just the way the world works. It's the way evolution works. Evolution is infectious because biodiversity all needs to be on the same page. And if you don't have what it takes to handle biodiversity, then your body will let you know, and that's where the body tries to evolve and you're not giving it what it needs. Okay, um, so the way in which you can have the antibodies work to your benefit is when you support your body correctly. Because when you support your body correctly, you release it, you take on the programming of the new environment, and then those excess antibodies get released. They get released and in your toilet, and then you're regenerating. Because when you're taking on antibodies, it's destroying you, right? And when you are evolving to a new environment, those old cells are being destroyed. But the thing is, when someone has leaky gut, they're not actually absorbing the nutritional elements in their environment. And so they're not regenerating at a faster rate than they are degrading, which is basically taking on and being affected by antibodies. And that's why there's the aging process. The aging process is the fact that you are taking on antibodies, inducing antibodies, but you're not regenerating at a faster rate than you're degrading. And so this is why people have hair, skin, and nails and bones being depleted being depleted first before they die. And then one day their heart just gives out. One day their brain just gives out. They have an aneurysm. One day they have liver failure or kidney failure. And not because of the salt, because of the fact that they haven't regenerated faster than they're degraded. So all these antibodies are in the vaccines, all these antibodies are in the prescription drugs, synthetic or whatever, monoclonal or whatever. All the antibodies that you are not releasing in your poop are all working against you. And that's why you're seeing people age faster with this COVID, because the COVID-19 is being mutated on bodies that are so weak out there. And then you're constantly having to adjust, and you're taking on antibodies, not releasing them. And then this is why people's hair is getting grayer in this environment, because the body is trying to keep the vital organs alive. Okay? And so that's why you need to understand prostaglandins. You need to understand prostaglandins don't mitigate pain, because RFK and Ron Paul and all of their whole Del Bigtree and all their cohorts still believe in holistic remedies. They still believe in killing off the pain. And the pain is evolution. But you have to support your body correctly during the evolutionary process. Okay? So prostaglandins, when you inhibit prostaglandins are the hormones that heal and regenerate and go and make sure that those areas, those hot spots in your areas are being dealt with and taken care of. But when you suppress that, you suppress the evolution. And that's the whole pain-free thing with the antibiotics and the painkillers, which is what the medical holistic system is selling you. Is they say that pain is bad and and now you're healed, right? So the prostaglandins. So when you induce prostaglandins, so when you're doing the jelly juice, let me give you some background on the jelly juice. When you're doing the jelly juice and you're taking in the salt, the white salt, you're taking in the probiotics, the cabbage and kale that's fermented down to a pre-digested state, it actually expands your blood vessels. When it expands your blood vessels, it allows the prostaglandins to be released, and the blood flows in the areas that are dark in your body. And that's when you start feeling pain, because life is now coming back in different parts of your bodies. But when you are taking things like, antibiotics and the different vaccines and all the anti-inflammatories and all the different antimicrobials and antifungals, all the anti-stuff, it constricts your blood vessels, okay? And when it constricts your blood vessels, you have a hard time getting blood to areas. And then dehydration happens because you're not drinking enough water. And so that's why people have to go get electrolytes or fluids at the hospital, because they're not getting enough water to allow more blood flow through their body. And they have constricted blood vessels because of their practices. And so, yeah, old people have a harder time with blood flow. They have blood flow issues. They, have all these different, maybe they were hemophiliacs, all these different diagnosable diseases around the blood vessels and the capillaries and the arteries. So I'm telling you, right now, the medical holistic industry is very black and white. But what they're doing is they're inducing the dark side of your body, because there is two sides of the immune system. The prostaglandins, which is pro-life, probiotic, and then the antibodies, which are antibiotic. And they're not really promoting the prostaglandins because that is the pain process. So it's very interesting. There definitely is the antibody deception out there. And I called it correctly. And I knew that the holistic industry way back when I first started the Dilly Juice, was two sides of the same coin. It was breaking everything down. And so now the picture is much clearer. Okay, the picture is much clearer as far as what's going on. And yeah, I'm going to be seeing, you're all going to be seeing some draconian measures coming into play. The best thing you do is rise above, know your rights, know how the game is played, because that's all strategy. Dilly Juice is strategy. So is now dealing with a government that's antibiotic. And you're trying to live and the government's trying to kill you, okay? If I can say it in the best way. Especially it's substantiated with the antibody promotion. It's right there in your face with Dr. Fauci and even, Trump and Biden and all the people in both the House and the Senate. And they're promoting antibodies, the vaccines. Eventually they're going to come together and promote HR 666 together when they figure out how to manufacture a crisis, which you know what's going to happen. Okay? So you're going to see some shit go on. And so you have to know your rights. Don't give up your DNA. Don't give up your DNA to anyone unless you have a child and you are around people who I call ninnies for the state. I know it's very pejorative, but it's very true. If you're around people that are willing to give up their DNA to a testing center and they find that they're positive, which could inevitably happen, the contact tracers are the glorified CPS workers, and they're coming after you. So remember, the Georgia Guidestones is all about guiding reproduction carefully. It's not just how do I say this? Culling out the imbalanced people. It's also taking your kids if they think that the parents are not complying with the state, if they find a reason. Right now you're seeing kids being kidnapped, you're seeing kids being shot, you're seeing kids being targeted. This is part of the depopulation agenda. I mean, you could say, well, it's what they're focusing on. Well, this wasn't happening too much back in my day. I can go down the street and play in the park. I did on summer days in Saratoga, California, when I wasn't on punishment. I used to go down to the park, it was like 3 or 4 blocks away, and I'd go play basketball. So I actually learned how to do swooshes from the top of the key and even the half court. And I would go in and do swooshes, and I would practice just doing. I could do around the world and kick people's asses around the world. Okay, but those days are gone. You can't leave your kid out of sight because of the pedophilia, because of the human trafficking. And so this whole thing with state-sanctioned human trafficking, yeah, that's basically this HR 666. It's the COVID-19 testing. As soon as you give up your DNA to somebody to see if you test positive or negative, you have now put your fate in the hands of someone that's going to justify whatever they want. That's the danger of you submitting voluntarily to the state. But they already have you guys conditioned and brainwashed, those of you that are still believing in doctors. But now I'm going to take it so black and white. There's no gray area anymore with the Jilly Juice, because the environment's becoming more aggressive. And I'm not going to allow anyone try to pin anyone's death in my group on the Jilly Juice when COVID-19 and vaccines and all the different therapeutics come out. No one's going to do that, because now you have to understand what kills people. What kills people is the amount of antibodies that you are taking on and accumulating at any given moment in time. And if you are taking things that are aggressive, such as chemotherapy, cannabis, remdesivir or something, whatever, hydroxychloroquine, turmeric honey, all the different detoxes, okay, if you're doing all of that and doing a little tiny bit of Jilly Juice, but yet you're like, oh yeah, I'm all about Jilly Juice. But you know, and maybe I know that you're doing that, but you're not really saying that to everybody else, that you're doing so much chemotherapy, you're doing so much cannabis, you're doing so many detoxes, and you're only doing a little bit of Jilly Juice because you don't want to feel any evolution. And then what happens? Your doctor recommends you getting a vaccine, and you get it because you don't want to not comply. And your doctor recommends you get a COVID-19 test, which means that if you come up positive, they're going to give you freaking hydroxychloroquine or some other kind of therapeutic that's going to induce antibodies, and you already have a weak heart. You know, if you are so tied in with the medical holistic system in this environment and you pass away, it's not because of the Jilly Juice. Just so all of you guys know, it's because that person was only doing a little tiny bit of Jilly Juice, and they were doing a whole lot of their fucking prescription drugs. They were doing a whole lot of their detoxes. They were doing a whole lot of their chemotherapy and cannabis and therapeutics. Because yes, the therapeutics are also antibodies in a pill form. They're antibodies in different forms. And so now I'm going to head this off before it becomes any kind of issue, because I know that there's going to be, I mean, Bill Gates already told you, you guys don't know, the second wave is going to be worse than the first wave. Trump already said you're not going to like what's going to happen in the future, but you're going to have to deal with it. You are being told already. I'm already seeing FEMA allocating millions and billions of dollars to hospitals in my area, okay, for PPE and COVID-19 testing that will give you answers within an hour. That's fucking scary. And then guess what? If they do sign that bill, guess what? Now you have glorified CPS workers that when they get those results of the test, guess where those papers are going? They're going right to that office. Oh God, we got a positive right here. And ooh, do they have any kids in the household? Do they have any elderly in the household? So the system is going to say, yeah, well, if you have kids in the household and you have elderly in the household, and now you tested positive. Now you tested positive. We are coming after you. So there's people in my group who are under a doctor's care who are going to be subject to that kind of major pressure to comply with the system. And so, yeah, I will not be surprised if there's people that are doing the Jilly Juice who are upholding to the system with their doctor's orders, with all of that stuff, potentially pass away. It's a reality that I'm aware of, but I'm going to make sure you guys understand what kills you and what keeps you alive. What will kill you is listening to your doctor, and that's black and white because of the antibodies. Because they're promoting antibodies, you know, ooh, the social distancing. Oh, the social distancing and the mask. Oh, wear a mask, but yet get injected with the antibodies. So any doctor out there that wants to dispute my information, you can't dispute antibodies. You cannot dispute antibodies, doctors out there. Oh, but there's program antibodies. When they go after the bad stuff, there's nothing bad in your body. Oh, the antigen. Yeah, you can program anything in your body to be antigen where an antibody can go after it. You realize you can program a food protein to be an antigen where an antibody gets induced because it's in the vicinity? You know that? Oh, no, that's conspiracy theory. Bullshit. They're programming antibodies right now, monoclonal antibodies, DMAbs, and all these different monoclonal in biotech. That's what all these, these different computer models, protein docking, taking samples from the population, whoever tested positive for COVID, to go and clean it up and everything, and then they go and create an antibody to put in the vaccines. They're programming to go after a type of frequency of what that COVID-19 evolution is that are attached to your cells, because viruses are not alive. It's how your cells get affected by this specific virus. So that's why there's aborted fetus cells and MRC5 or whatever, which is human tissue, in the vaccines. See, even doctors, they're only told, they get this song and dance, and they're only told maybe one aspect of it, and they get this whole thing of, oh yeah, antibodies are so great, and they're so fucking brainwashed, it's unreal. Doctors are brainwashed, probably worse than the population. But they are the direct link to the population's ignorance, because doctors are just as ignorant about the human body as the population. It's a blind leading the blind. So I'm going to take a very black and white now, because it has to be. You're either pro-life or you're anti-life. That's it. There is no in between. Oh yeah, you can say, well, what about emergencies? Like you get in a car accident, Jillian. Well, yeah, obviously triage. When you're out there, medics are not doctors. Medics are medics. They do, the very basic to keep your vitals, figure out your vitals, and give you fluids and blood if you need to, and that's it. Or set a broken leg. But no, we don't need doctors in our vicinity. Doctors are what is inducing the antibody deception. And so now, more than ever, anyone in my group that's under a doctor's care, it's going to be hit or miss if you survive this next wave, especially if you're elderly, especially if you have cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And so I'm just putting it out there. There's some of you that are not going to survive this next wave. Because you're elderly, you have cancer, disease, and chronic illness, you have aggressive doctors in your world. You're probably listening to your doctors. Oh, Jillian said don't listen to your doctors. Yeah, why would you promote antibodies? Doctors basically promote antibodies. That's anti-life. I could substantiate that left and right and freaking dispute it. You can't dispute it. Oh, you can try. You can try to spin it with science, pseudoscience. The biggest pseudoscience peddlers out there is the Rockefeller medical holistic industry. That's the biggest pseudoscience ever. Peddlers. Ever. So you're going to find out exactly what's going to happen this next. Because, yeah, you're already seeing the depopulation agenda already being kicked off. It's already being in your face. Now it's put up or shut up. I took a middle ground. And I said in here, yeah, don't listen to your doctor, because you know what? I have to be able to cater to both sides. Because if I were to be acting like, if I were to say this, what I'm saying now, in this book, to those that are like on the fence, I could see where, who knows what. But if I take a middle ground and say, okay, you gotta listen to your doctor, maybe take a vaccine, whatever, because I don't want someone that's like in dire straits not listen to the doctor. But you know what? Now here's the thing. Maybe you had time to play both sides of the fence prior to all this COVID, prior to all these vaccines, prior to this kickoff of the depopulation agenda. I didn't realize they were going to actually ratchet it up. They're ratcheting it up. It's being ratcheted up, oh my God, at an accelerated pace. So yeah. Back then, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a middle ground because I don't want to, come off too extreme. But I'm telling you what, now you have to choose a side. You can't serve two masters. You either understand Julie Juice, it's pro-life, it's probiotic, it's regenerative, or you are for death. You're listening to your doctor, you're listening to your homeopathic, your allopathic, your naturopathic, your ND, whatever it is, your osteopath, anyone with a doctor name or a nurse name or a nutritionist, anyone licensed by the state, you listen to anyone licensed by the state, you have chosen your side. So jelly juice is pro-life in the most truest sense. And then all of your pills, powders, and supplements and vaccines and chemotherapy and cannabis is anti-life. You can't serve two masters. So yeah, so now the lines have been drawn because you have no other choice. You really don't. Especially those of you that are 60, 70, 80 years old dealing with major predispositions. You have no other choice. You entertain the medical holistic system, you are going to undermine anything that you're doing. I got to take a side. I choose life, but do you guys choose life? That's really more to the point. And so if you are choosing to listen to your doctor, you are choosing the antibiotic side. You are anti-life if you choose listening to your doctor. That's all I can say. And so if you die because you don't listen to your doctor, it's because you haven't been doing the jelly juice. You're not drinking the jelly juice. You know why? Because jelly juice is pro-life. It's evolution. And you've allowed whatever it is that your doctors have given you to basically destroy you. So you only have two choices, pro-life or anti-life. That's it. Antibodies are not your friend. That is the credibility that you will always have if you understand the antibody deception. So anyways, that's all I gotta say. Bye.